Okay, so today we are going to make candied pecans. It's a very simple recipe. It tastes like it's loaded with butter. There's not a single thing of butter in it. It's really straightforward and it's quite delicious. It comes away with this sort of buttery, sweet, salty flavor. Everybody who tries it just thinks it's amazing. So I'm just gonna go through what we've got. You'll see me make it, and it's easy to do. So here we go. All right. So what we're gonna use is, again, the Merino sugar, like we used before. We're gonna use some Himalayan sea salt. You can use whatever salt you want. This is kind of fun to use. And we're going to use pecan halves. So this is a 2-pound bag of pecans. The recipe is for 1 pound, but we're gonna make a bunch today because lots of people love this and we love giving it away. So we're just gonna make it. Oh, and the other thing we're using is Penzeys cinnamon. They're Vietnamese cinnamon. If you haven't experienced Penzeys before, highly recommend that you check them out. They have amazing spices and their cinnamon is delicious. Okay, so we're gonna start by taking an egg white. So this is 2 egg whites in here because, again, we're doubling the recipe, but the recipe for 1 pound of pecans calls for 1 egg white. So we're gonna put 1 egg white in here, or 2, sorry, and then 2 tablespoons of water. So again, if you were doing the 1 pound, it'd be 1 tablespoon of water, 1 egg white. We're doing 2, so it's 2 tablespoons and 2 egg whites. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to mix this until it forms into a froth. Now you can do this a lot of different ways, but for me, the easiest thing is this awesome hand mixer that I have. And it goes fast. So if we were just doing egg whites, what you would see is this would form into stiff peaks, but because we add the water in there, what ends up happening is this gets frothy instead. And we want it to get into a nice stiff froth. And you'll see in a second why. I don't know how loud this is. The AirPods do a good job of cutting out background noise, so I think you'll be able to hear me fine, but just in case, I don't want to give you too many helpful instructions when you can't hear it. So we do this for about, 2 minutes or so, and once it starts to form up into a nice froth and get a little bit of structure, then we're good. So we don't want to do this so long that it would actually form, stiff peaks, but we want it to be a good structure. And the reason why is because what we're going to do is we're going to take all the pecans and we're just going to pour them into this froth. And what happens is this froth covers the pecans and acts as the base to get the sugar and salt mix, sugar, salt, and cinnamon mix, to actually stick to the pecans. So where someone else might use butter or oil or something like that, this uses just egg whites and water to get the same effect. And again, with the high fat content of the pecans, you don't need to add more calories into this with butter. You can just use egg whites, which do a nice job of coating everything, and then when it roasts, you end up with this congealing and holding the sugar and salt onto the pecan, which is great. So again, I think it's a very clever recipe. All your calories in this recipe are from sugar and the pecans themselves. So I think it's pretty healthy. All right, so now we're gonna take 2 cups of our Moreno sugar. We're gonna take 2 teaspoons of Himalayan sea salt, again, because we doubled the recipe. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons or thereabouts of cinnamon. So it doesn't have to be perfect. This is kind of like making cinnamon sugar, sort of. So, you know, it's your preference how cinnamony you like it. We love cinnamon, so from our standpoint, you really can't have too much cinnamon. So we're gonna mix this together so that the salt, sugar, cinnamon is pretty evenly distributed in here. There are some clumps in here, so I'm gonna just take my hands and kind of break up the clumps a little bit. However you want to do that is fine. For me, the Moreno tends to clump up just a little bit, and so I want to make sure that we don't end up with clumps of sugar in the pecans itself. So I'm just gonna get that nice and mixed through like that. Make sure we've got a pretty good distribution of sugar, salt, cinnamon, kind of all in there. It smells really good. I wish you guys could smell this for how the cinnamon is. But we've got a pretty good mix. The Moreno is a bigger, thicker granule, so it's not gonna look as uniform as white sugar, but still looks great. Okay, so now we just take this, we pour it in here, make sure we didn't lose any of that amazing, delicious cinnamon. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna toss the pecans and the sugar together like this. Get everything evenly coated and you're good to go. The other cool thing about this recipe is if you have kids and you're trying to, or grandkids, and you're trying to get them into, baking or cooking, and you want an easy recipe that's fun to do and, straightforward. This is a good one, because they can get their hands in there, they can play around and mix everything together, and if they lick their hands off to lick the sugar, no big deal. But it tastes way better after it's roasted than it does like this, unlike cookie batter. So, and it's just egg whites. So, but it's quite delicious. All right, so then the next step after this is we're gonna put it onto some trays, some cookie sheets, and for that, put some space here. So I'm gonna grab my cookie sheets that are over here waiting for me. There's our cookie sheets. So typically 1 pound is gonna cover an entire cookie sheet in a single layer. I have 2 pounds, so I'm gonna do obviously 2 cookie sheets. So we're just gonna take out about half, put it on here, take out about the other half, put it on here. See if we kind of got this pretty well. I think this one's a little light, maybe not. And you're just kind of spreading it out to be about you want it to be a single layer thick. And meanwhile, I've preheated the oven. When I started this, I preheated the oven to 250 degrees. And this is gonna roast for an hour, or bake for an hour, not roast. You don't put it on roast, just put it on bake. It's gonna bake for an hour, but you're gonna move it around every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, you're gonna scoop it all up in the middle and then spread it all back out again. So usually what I do is I set a timer for 15 minutes and then pull it out of the oven, or just pull the tray out and move it around, flatten it back out again, put it back in, set another 15-minute timer, and then try to remember which timer I'm on, whether or not I have an hour left or not. So usually it's pretty good. And I'm generally doing something else while I'm doing this, so it's not so hard to keep track of. This is a easy recipe to get started while you're doing something else that might use the oven later, and you know, gives you sort of a preheated oven to get going. But again, it's quite delicious. It's very portable. You can send this to people. It's a delicious snack. And it smells amazing. And I cannot recommend this highly enough. So those are our 2 trays. Hey Google, how much time is left?
You've got 3 minutes and 3 seconds left.
All right, so I have a tray in the oven right now that is waiting to come out, and I thought I would try some more you know, fancy approach to my videos in having something ready to show you guys at the end. So the finished product is about ready to come out. So I'm gonna just pull it out a little bit early. It should be fine. You'll know if it's crunchy, then it's good. And I'll show you what that means. So let me pull that out of the oven real quick and turn this down so you can actually see. And grab our mitts. All right, it smells amazing. This is the finished product. And what you can see here is when I start to move it around, it's not gooey. It's all crunchy. So you know it's done when it has this consistency to it, where it's crumbly and crunchy and not gooey at all. So even though we pulled it out a few minutes early, it's perfectly fine. This came out great. And it's, again, it's a pretty easy recipe. It's hard to burn it. You can let it go a little too long and it can burn, but for the most part, it's hard to burn. Now, don't eat it right away. You want it to cool down a little bit, not just because it's hot, but because the oils in the pecan, when they're hot, are a little chewy, and you want them to cool down a little bit so that you get a very crunchy product. If you serve it straight out of the oven, it can be a little chewy. So one of these right now, it's not hard, it's chewy, because the oil is still hot in the pecans. But if I let this sit for about 5-10 minutes, it'll still be warm, but the oils won't be as they won't be as liquid as they. My words fail me sometimes. As they would be coming straight out of the oven at 250 degrees. So when they cool down to 100 or something like that, then you'll have a nice. Hey Google, cancel. You'll have a nice crunchy candied pecan, which is exactly what you're looking for. So hope you enjoyed this recipe, and hope you get a chance to try it for yourself.